This week, Chelsea Green was on the Masked Men Wrestling podcast, and she was asked about the potential introduction of an Intercontinental and United States Championship in WWE's women's division, right? And this has divided a lot of people. For me personally, I've been a big supporter of it for a long time. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I will keep on saying it. If the men have it, then the women deserve it. Why? Because the women have shown that they can draw as much as men can. They have also shown that they can put on the performances that men can. So why shouldn't they have the same opportunities that the men do have? It's a no-brainer to me. I want to see women's mid-card titles, and I also want to see the women's tag team titles stay, because a lot of people have been saying they should replace the tag team titles. I don't want to see that. But Clark, I want to know, what do you want to see?
Ben praises mid-card titles. Okay, I had to write that down. I didn't expect that one. Not on a day like this. But yeah, I'm 100% in and on the exact same page. The only thing I would do is not name them directly after the IC and the US title. Make them unique titles to the brand, new titles with new lineages, and the history will pay off, not necessarily in the short term out of the gates, unless the building is great. That's the only issue. The booking's got to be awesome, and the storyline's got to be awesome out of the gates. If you're not using kind of the history of the IC or the United States, or even bringing back like a European championship type of a scenario, I don't really know how you go about this. I think you need new names is my only caveat. Outside of that, I don't know what's taken so long. To me, mid-card women's belts makes more sense than the women's tag belts did out of the gates, because there's depth in the division. In the singles division, there's more depth. And just to put it that simply, that's the way I would go about this, is two unique mid-card titles. It works. We've seen a lot of success with the TBS title. Say what you will, the booking's different. It's not the same as WWE. We've seen quite a bit of success with that title throughout its history. It can work. It can work. And it's all about how it's booked and how we make it work. And then as soon as that history builds, it becomes even better.
Absolutely. I mean, no doubt about it. And I agree with you. Why not give them different names, you know? I feel like if they're the same name, it's kind of a little bit basic. I'm okay with it, but I just think it's a bit lazy. Do them different names. But because of the NXT North American Women's Championship being introduced, I do fear they are going to be the same name. I am going to have to clarify something now, though, Clark, because you brought it up, right? Mid-card titles, I am against them, right? So, realistically, I am against this, right? I am against women's mid-card titles because I'm against men's mid-card titles. But if men are going to have mid-card titles, then so should the women. But in my opinion, nobody should have mid-card titles. They should be banned.
Talk about connecting the dots. That was clean, Ben. I respect that. Okay. Fair.
I'm consistent, if not anything else. But, Shad, I want to get your thoughts on this next. Should they introduce women's mid-card titles on the WWE main roster?
So I'm 50-50 on it, right? And I'll tell you why. I think having a title in the picture is more of a crutch and an excuse for booking. And that kind of tells me that they don't know how to book a women's division and multiple storylines without it circulating around the title, which is very true. I mean, you look at programming on WWE television now, most of the feuds with women are tied to the titles. The Liv Morgan situation, with Bayley, and then these mismatched tag teams that are being positioned like that. Everything circles around the title. And I know in combat sports, the title is the king of the hill, but you have other situations where in the men's divisions, they do build captivating feuds that don't, circle around the title. It doesn't revolve around the title. So in a way, it's kind of, them being like, yeah, we're kind of lazy, and this is a way to get that. But since that is the case and you have to live with what you're doing, I do like the idea of adding women's mid-card titles. You see the success rate of it on NXT now that we have the North American women's title as well as the NXT Women's Championship. We just had two incredible matches that were around that, and that has success. You look at AEW, right? And I know a lot of people don't like it's supposed to be apples and oranges or whatever between AEW and WWE. AEW is doing a phenomenal job booking their women's division, and they're doing a phenomenal job booking around the women's champions with Mercedes and then with Toni Storm. I think you can do that. You have a lot of great women on Raw and SmackDown that are kind of just hanging, chilling in the weeds. And to my point, I would rather them have those 2 titles in the tag championships, just because if we're talking numbers, there's not a high volume of tag team competitors that are actual tag team in the women's division. You really just got Katana, Kaden, Isla, and Alba Fire, which honestly you could break them up because both of them are great individual talents. Everything else is kind of a forced mismatch tag team just because they need to get the women to do something. If you have an extra title, you open up the gates and you let women compete for it, create more storylines. You know, Chelsea would be a good incumbent being a Intercontinental or U.S. champion. Dakota Kai, like, you have a lot of great women that don't get the opportunity to be the world champion, but like you can give them that mid-card title and help them build up. So I'm cool with it.
Absolutely. No, I agree with a lot of what you said there. I mean, it leads to a great point as well, because Bayley was on Cody Rhodes' new show this week, right? And it's called What Do You Want to Talk About? Of course it is, right? But yeah, she was a guest on that, and she said the exact same thing. She said that she wants to see more non-title feuds in the women's division, right? Because there's not really any in WWE. I completely agree with that. On the topic of the tag thing that you bring up, I agree again, right? Because there aren't enough tag teams right now. But the reason there aren't enough tag teams is because somebody isn't doing their job at building tag teams. And who is that somebody? He's your head chef, Shad. Shawn Michaels. He's not...
What?
He's gotten rid of the NXT tag team titles. Thrown them out the window.
Wrong.
The two tag teams that I named are from NXT, and that was a decision.
They were from NXT, but nowadays you've got no NXT tag titles.
Did you watch the 5-star tag match on the PLE?
No, he's talking about the women. He's talking about the women's tag team division. Look, that's a call from upper management where they consolidated it with the whole Ronda and Shayna thing. I thought that was dumb. Honestly, the thing is this, right? To your point, if they made a more focal point of making the tag team titles like a rotating title, and letting NXT be a pit stop, like
yes, which Alba, it should be.
With Alba and Isla Dawn, they're not really doing nothing right now. I'll be honest with you. Monday I talked about it on the show. I was like, you know what the weirdest thing is about Damage Control going against Zoe and the new faction with Sonya and all them and Shayna? They're feuding. There's 2 tag teams feuding, and neither of them are champions. Well, your tag team champs are just getting a 1 minute backstage segment. They don't even feel like the tag champs. Y'all just gave him the moment, and that's what I was saying in the pay-per-view.
I mean, my issue, though, with it is that, again, I don't think the answer is remove the titles. I think the answer is improve the booking. Like, I don't think the issue is the title itself. I think the issue is the booking. So instead of, trying to make them... I mean, you mentioned it, Shad, and it's true. At times, they're lazy with the booking of the women's division. Instead of encouraging them to be more lazy... I think we need to encourage them to actually do their job and to start putting pen to paper and looking at the women's division in as much detail as they look at the men's division, right? That's my perspective on it. But Anthony, I want to get your perspective. What are your thoughts on all this?
Honestly, I think there is no depth in the tag division. They created those tag titles just to say they had them. There was no clear motivation behind them, and there's nothing there. Your TV time is not increasing with the new TV deals. You're getting the same, if not less, because we don't know exactly what Raw is going to be. True. I don't think you could support the tag titles and a secondary mid-card title. I think the secondary mid-card title is the smarter choice. We've seen the success with Kalani Jordan in NXT. We've seen what AEW's done with the TBS title. I think that's the safe bet to do. You have a limited amount of time to present this talent. To present the tag, unless you're doing a separate brand with just all women's wrestlers, you just can't do it. There's too much going on, and there's too much big name talent that you need to get on that 3-hour show, that 2-hour show, whatever it is, you can't support two separate. You can't. It's just not possible to get an audience to care about all these champions and all these feuds. It's just not possible with that many titles going on. AEW's got that problem. WWE has that problem now. So if you're adding more titles to the mix, it's not supposed to be participation trophies. They're supposed to make people. If everyone has one, they have no value. And therefore, the champion doesn't matter. They need to be of value. So if you're doing a mid-card title, I think the roster is definitely deep enough to support mid-card titles on Raw and SmackDown, whether they're the Intercontinental in the US, whatever they're doing. I think that's the smart move. The tag titles, it's never worked. No one's ever cared. And WWE hasn't cared, and the fans really haven't truly cared. So at this point, just call it a day. Get rid of those. Just do the mid-cards.
My rebuttal to that is, should we also get rid of the men's tag team ones then?
Listen,
yes.
They need to be able to support them. That's my concern. The men's tag titles have mattered at different points. The women's tag titles, the biggest claim to fame to that was that Sasha and Naomi walked out of the company. Other than that,
I mean, you're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that.
No one's cared.
True. Yeah, I'm like, ask Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, she went to AEW and got 2 belts, different belts, also of same value at the moment. But still.
We got Pappy Krillin in the comments who's saying they already have 2 world titles. Well, the men have 2 world titles. They have 2 mid-card titles. They have they have 2 sets of tag team belts. I mean, like, come on. Like, this is the thing I don't understand, though.
It's always tough to start one with they. That's always a bad look.
Here's the tough part. There's a perception of the audience that still, unfortunately, looks at the women's matches and they leave the stands. I saw that firsthand at WrestleMania 40. Before Bayley's match, there were, so many people were getting up, leaving the stands. I thought the show was over. Because it's a shame, but it's true. There is a perception in the audience that just doesn't accept or don't look at them the same way.
But the segment numbers don't reflect that. That's what's fascinating, because in WWE, a lot of weeks, the highest rated segments are women's segments. Like the TV ratings are not reflecting that. Whereas in AEW, they do reflect that. But I think that's a bigger issue because I feel like the gap is closing in AEW now. But I felt the issue with them is that, they've not given the women enough of a showcase to make them the division matter and to make them draws. But WWE have overall, and it's showing in the TV ratings.
My feeling is, though, if you're not getting behind it, whether the tag titles, whatever, if you're not really getting behind it and you're having it just to say you have it, you're doing a disservice to the women. Because you're not.
No, I agree with that.
You're not giving the effort behind it, and they haven't given the effort to the tag titles. So my thought is, get rid of it. If you really, truly want to get behind it and you're going to put teams and you're going to put an emphasis behind it, you can always bring them back down the road. But there's no point in having them if they're just coasters. Like they're not, they're just there.
And a lot of people over on Instagram are asking me, they're saying to me, because I agree with you, Anthony, right? But a lot of people are asking me, so how would I do it, right? We got Lord Virus of Nurgle, shout out to you. He's saying, so how would I do it? We have Pappy Krillin who's saying there aren't enough relevant women for it. Well, I can actually answer both these at the same time. The way in which I would do it is very simply, to be honest with you, get rid of the men's mid-card titles and don't introduce them in the women's division, and spend the time from the men's mid-card titles and put that time instead into the women's tag team division or something like that, right? Because I feel like
I'm sorry. Did that Gunther run and the match at 40?
No, Anthony. I like that, but the fact of the matter is, we have to give
title.
It is, but we have to give the women equal time, right? It's only fair. That's my point.
Get rid of the tag titles.
We could get rid of the tag titles too. We could get rid of tag team wrestling.
Get rid of the women's tag titles because you're not getting behind it.
That's not fair, because then we're giving the women less tag team. The fact of the matter is, currently, it's 80-20 the men. So we need to get rid of 30% of the men's TV time and give it to the women, right? We can't just increase the TV time magically.
That's the problem.
The point, though, I think what y'all are trying to also say is that if you will leave, it's more so like we're talking about with the booking. I think there's more compelling booking with individual single stars rather than tag teams. Because there's not.
That's true. That is true.
Like, there's not, like, look, man, I ain't here to sugarcoat nothing. The booking for the tag team has been trashed since the existence of the title. Like, Sasha and Bailey getting it was cool. They made it cool because they was running it during the pandemic. After that, all these makeshift tag teams. Shayna Baszler has won that tag championship with everybody. She about to win it with me next year.
That's true.
All right. I was just taking notes. I wrote down Ben anti-merch. Let's get rid of the men's mid-card titles. Ben, definitively anti-merch.
So essentially, Gunther's whole reign was worthless, according to Ben.
No. That's not what I'm saying,
That's
right?
what I heard.
My point of the matter, right, is the fact that we need to give more time to the women's division, and the only way we can do that is by giving less to the men. That's the only possible way of doing it. So, in order for that to happen, we probably potentially, well, we don't have to get rid of the mid-card titles, right? But what it will mean is then there's less feuds which aren't for titles. And I don't like mid-card titles. I've said it before, unless they have a stipulation attached to them, right? We've got, I agree with this point from Supreme Chris 28, who's saying they have to put more matches in the women's division. And I agree. We don't see enough women's matches. And they don't get enough TV time.
And
that is why they deserve more time.
Not to steal the best UK slang that I know, but I'm just winding you up, Ben, just so you know, by the way. I want you to know.
So do you think Ben would be able to get that full explanation of why he doesn't like mid-card titles out before Gunther chopped them? I'm just curious.
Well, we might have to. We might have to indeed. I might have to tag Gunther in it.